Good morning, everyone. I call the meeting for the Moorings Bay Citizens Advisory Committee for July 19th, 2022 to order. Ally, if you could do a roll call, please.
Sure. Chair Spark.
Here.
Vice Chair Cartons.
Here.
Member Broderick. Member Williams.
Here.
Member Nichols. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements for today?
No, we don't have any announcements.
Thank you.
I was short-handed this morning.
Any items to be added to the agenda for today's meeting?
No, we don't have any items to be added.
Thank you. Item 4 is public comment, and we do have a public speaker today. It's Robert Lynch. If you could please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Thank you. It's a pleasure
Okay.
to be here, and thank you for hearing me.
Can you just turn that mic on?
Yes, absolutely. That does it? Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I'm Robert Porter Lynch, and I serve on the committee that we have for the docks and dredging in our dock area. And what I'd like to do is just bring to you your attention via a letter that I've given you of the problem that we're having at Harbor Lights, which is right on Moorings Bay. It describes the situation of what we believe to be the problem and the cause of it. And what we'd like to do is have you, as a advisory committee, hand this over to the staff for further investigation so that we really have all the facts in hand, especially from some people who really know the details about what silting looks like. As evidence, I took 2 samples of what that silt looks like, and you can see it gets suspended in the water. These came out of our dock area, and here is also a powder sample of it when it's dried out. So do I give this to Natalie? Yes. Okay, Natalie, here's some of the evidence. As the problem has gotten so severe that now every boat is aground in our harbor area, and so our riparian rights have been very limited. Those are all photographic evidence. You'll also see a picture of a sailboat hard aground in there. That's mine, and you'll see how severe the problem is. So if you have any questions or thoughts, I'd be more than happy to also answer.
Is that just at low tide, or do you have that all the time?
We have it particularly at low tide, but I can tell you it's getting to the point where even at medium tide, my boat is aground.
So are you seeing it along all of your property on the seawall?
Yes, and the problem is that we live in a cul-de-sac, and it's outlined in the material there via a map, where the tide does not clear out the silt. And the other problem is that the wind blows from the southwest, as we all know, during the summertime, and so the wind pushes the waves into our property from the silt that backs up in the harbor itself. And in addition, there are 25 storm drains that feed into the area that's silting in. And we know for sure that a lot of that silt comes from the storm drains. Now, we're also, yes, George?
Mr. Lynch, your specific location, you touched on it for a moment, does in fact call for a trapment of,
Yes.
of this. So it does exasperate the situation.
Yes, it does. And to my knowledge, the Naples Bay Committee has never had a sampling done of the water. You know, we sample around the bay, but not in this cul-de-sac.
Have you heard anything from your neighbors?
In the condominium? Yes.
No. I mean condominium to condominium.
The other condominiums don't have this particular problem because they're not in the cul-de-sac. So they haven't had the accumulation, plus they don't have the storm drains dumping into the cul-de-sac either.
Okay.
So that's the problem.
Why would you think it's the storm drains and not just the tidal flow?
Well, it's an excellent question, and here's what we have been able to observe. You'll see pictures in the material there where you can see right in front of the storm drain all the silt that's in the water after a rainstorm. So, and it's pretty obvious after a rainstorm what the silt suspended in the water looks like. It's very brownish color.
Do you have any idea where that's coming from? What retention pond or anything like that?
Well, as I've outlined in the map, there are 25 storm drains that have been connect up into the storm drains from the neighborhood that drain into our property. So we're the confluence of all of these storm drains. And so, you're looking at several, I have not estimated what the drainage area is. This is what I would like the staff to take a look at. And the catchment drains, obviously, or the catchment basins that have been installed or been there for some of them for years, are not catching all of this, because if you take any one of the samples that I took out of the water this morning and just shake it up, you'll see how fine the particulate matter is, and that it stays suspended in the water when there's turbulence. So that's what's, and so we're looking at over 50 years worth of all of the silt from the neighborhood being dumped on our property, or at least our area where we have riparian rights. I should say, we don't own the water, but
Has that been gradually building up, the silt, over the years?
yes, it has. I've lived there for 20 years, and I can tell you it's far more precarious today than it was when I moved there. We did have a little bit of a problem 20 years ago, but now it's at the level which you'd have to call severe. One of the boat docks right in front of the drain is so shallow that we could not park any boat there at any time, and we had to turn it into a kayak rack.
So one of the issues, you've got 2 outflow pipes that
Yes.
go right through your property. And
Correct.
there are 80 outflow pipes throughout the whole of Moorings Bay. So we've discussed those as part of the water quality plan
Yeah.
in the past, so.
So I don't want anything other than just to have you essentially say, staff, please look into this, let's investigate, is this true? Is there validity to what Robert has said? And, then come back to you with, a report to figure out, is the city responsible for this or not? And then what should we do for remediation?
A question for Nancy. What would be the procedure here, since this is part of public comment? Do we discuss this in member comments later, or?
Is just comment.
Yeah.
Without discussion. Usually it is discussed later, although we don't have a lot of people in the room. If you want to go ahead and just refer it to staff, there's not going to be a huge outcry against that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to recommend that staff do look into this. I think we realize that there are certain areas of private property that need to be dredged, but if this is perhaps coming from construction sites, which is something that we've discussed, the dirt flowing into the storm drain system, because we've had such increased construction, especially in our area, going into the
Especially.
bay, which has been one of the things that I keep bringing up. So if it's possible to maybe take a look, analyze what is coming in from what areas into the bay, and I don't know if water quality testing can be done in these areas. I know it's not, like you said, the site number 3, I believe, is closer to the shoals, so you're kind of away from that area. So Natalie, is there any possibility of looking into that?
Yes, what we would like to do is request a water quality sample, particularly at slack tides, because I can tell you this stuff smells. And you wouldn't want this next to your house, believe me.
Well, I think your photos show more than anything else that you certainly have a problem there. I've owned a couple marinas in my lifetime, and I know exactly what it is. Not where it's coming from, but having shoaling like that at the docks, you lose the rental income and everything else.
Yeah, we don't have a single happy boater in our
I can
community.
imagine, yeah.
And they moved to our condominium because of the boating. That was the primary attraction for it, was that we have a wonderful set of docks that we maintain, meticulously. And if anyone would like to come over and investigate yourself, I'd be more than welcome to host you, come over for a breakfast sometime or at low tide, and you can do your own examination.
Yeah. Well, I think Sandra's covered it, and we would recommend that staff look into that. That's our recommendation.
Okay.
Is that right? Everybody on board with that? Yeah.
Yeah, we can take a look at the complaint and, give you some follow-up at the next meeting.
Okay, do
Thank
we
you.
need a motion on this, or is that just a recommendation?
It's fine. A motion would be good, just to go ahead and give the clear direction to staff.
Okay.
It seems like there's consensus among the three of you, but go ahead for formality.
I'd like to make a motion to,
I'll move to have staff look into the situation.
Second.
okay, all in favor? Aye.
Okay.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Okay, our next item is approval of the minutes from our April 28th, 2022 meeting. Did everyone have a chance to take a look? Any questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to
From
approve.
George,
Second.
Roy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Motion passes. Okay, so swiftly on to item number 6, Doctor's Pass update.
Yes, we just have the update of the light. The light has been replaced out there. The old light was taken back and repaired at the shop, so it's in reserve for future use. So if we have any issues in the future, that will be available to us, and the invoice is forthcoming for that work.
So the markers were, the 1 and 2 markers, were they replaced?
Yes, the markers were replaced and, installed.
Great, thank you. Any questions on the Doctor's Pass? Item number 7, Moorings Bay project discussion.
Yes, the Moorings Bay project, the riprap bids came in higher than the $35,000 that was allotted for the project. So if you would like to go forward, I would need direction on what kind of higher expenditure you would like to go with.
What were the bids?
I think one was in like the 40s and one was in the 50s.
And for this area, can you describe again for us what area this would cover?
The area underneath the bridge, the riprap on both sides of the
On
bridge.
both sides, this is Harbor Drive Bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
We had a cap on how much we approved the last time,
35,000.
35,000. So now we have to lift it because everybody was higher than 35,000.
It's what you would like to do.
Yeah.
And what is your feeling on the benefit of putting the riprap under the bridge for our water quality?
I mean, gives a lot of places for little creatures to, to live and for oysters to attach, which are excellent for water quality. Gives, just a lot of infrastructure and habitat for creatures.
That bridge is a little narrower than, I think, some of the channel in there, so would this impede on, at any point?
It wasn't supposed to. I mean, per what we had discussed in the past, it was not supposed to impede on any kind of ingress or egress under the bridge.
Do we have any specifics?
Any other specifics on the project?
I'm sorry, I don't have any other specifics.
Okay. And timeline on getting this project done if we approve an increased?
I don't think that there was any issues with doing it within the timeframes that were recommended within
The only reason I'm saying is, do we want to perhaps discuss this at the next meeting? Maybe with a few more specifics and,
It's not going to hold anything up, I think that's what you asked, right?
yes, yeah.
Pardon?
It's not going to hold any progress up on having it done? Whether we pass it today or next,
Well, I mean, it would just be 3 months later. I mean,
to do it, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you'll just be punting it for 3 months.
When's our
Till
next meeting?
Next meeting,
October.
October.
October. Oh,
We need more specifics.
yeah, I agree with
Okay,
that.
so what specifics were you looking for? Just what kind of habitat and water quality it will add to the bay, and if it will impede any kind of,
And only 2 bids?
yeah, there were just 2 bids.
Okay, is there a requirement for more than that?
No.
Well, it depends. I mean, if they put out the solicitation, if only two people applied, I don't know the time frame. If they want to go out for more bids, since you have a 3-month period, I mean, that would be an option for staff to consider if that would generate more competition, I guess, for the award.
Well, yeah, this was a formal written quote process, so if you wanted to recommend a higher amount, it would go to an invitation to bid process, which would just go with the lowest bidder. If you would like to take more time and, put the bid back out again, then we can go through that process and start over.
Things might get a little better. Can't get any worse.
Well, I think you all know I'm completely in favor of doing the riprap. It's just a question of the cost. We're also looking at other costs that we approved at the last meeting. So do we need to look at the whole picture before we make a decision on approving more on this, perhaps? Maybe at the end of this discussion, we can decide?
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
so we're just,
We'll just put in a hold for this to the end of this discussion
Okay.
until we hear your full presentation.
okay. That was all I had for the Moorings Bay project.
I'd like to add something. Maybe I should have done it in the beginning, but there was a report put out by the Gulf Coast, what is that, Sandra? What do they call it? Gulf Coast is
It's the GSAC Gulf.
GSAC. An article, and what does that, do you have that copy I gave you?
I think I gave it.
Do you have a copy of that so I can?
Yeah, do you have it? There it is.
Their headline was, "All is not well in Moorings Bay." And it's a very detailed report about the algae and everything else that's on there. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest that you read it and agree or disagree with it, but they're claiming that the algae is very high, and of course, I'm paraphrasing everything. I'd be glad to give you a copy of it.
I'm not familiar with that particular publication, but we do have, samples taken in Moorings Bay regularly, and nothing has been above, the requirements at this point in time.
That seems to be our rationale as well.
I think what they did was they took the Woods report and they did some analysis of it. So part of our community outreach that we talked about, one of the recommendations from that report was going to the homeowner associations around the bay. And so far, I've done Moorings, Park Shore, and the South Gulf Shore. I still have GSAC and Coquina to do. And part of the outreach was to talk about that report, the recommendations that came out of it, the recommendations that staff is examining to eventually present to the city council, I guess.
Okay.
So I don't know if it'd be helpful if,
So you got that under control?
yeah, maybe maybe you and I can go talk to them, and we can talk about the report
Yeah.
and the results from it, and then the recommendations.
Okay.
But, yeah, to me, that looks like a recap of, and I only just looked at it
Of
very
what
briefly.
you already have, yeah.
This
Okay,
morning.
good.
But I think it's things that you're addressing
Okay.
through the sampling.
Okay, thank you.
So some of the other things that we talked about at the last meeting with the inflow, testing on the inflow pipes into the lakes, has that started?
I don't know that yes, actually, it has started. They are working on, they just did the very first sampling event, so I don't think they even have the results back yet. So that's just, it's just literally starting.
Is there a reporting schedule for those results at this point?
It usually takes a month or so to get the results back, and then it would have to be in a report. So it'd probably take about 2 months to get the report back.
So maybe by our next meeting? we could
Maybe
have
by the next meeting, we might
yeah,
have some
of
results.
those.
Yeah.
And have we, I think we talked about the inlet baskets, which is part of that report. We talked about additional inlet baskets and filters. Have there been any cost recommendations?
There has been discussion about it. I think that they have ordered some, but they haven't all the parts haven't come in. So we're still kind of in the process of waiting for the delivery, the supply chain delivery issues. So I can give you an update on that.
Okay, maybe
next.
for the next meeting.
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you. Any other comments about the water quality?
Is there any progress report on the seawall in Venetian Bay? Because I see them working down there, only they're north of the area that we're concerned with, that the city had the lawsuit with and all that.
Right. They are out to bid, I think, on that process. They're in the bidding process to get the work done, so they're working in that
It's
direction.
in the pipeline. Yeah, I
The
see they're
seawall
doing
area.
north of our area, they're doing the
seawall.
seawall all up and along the Venetian Bay restaurants there and whatnot. So that's not part of the area that's, where the sidewalk's closed due to the collapse of the,
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're working on the whole entire area there. I
oh,
think
so that's part of it,
I
yeah.
I think,
don't hold me to it,
I
but
heard that the
think-
Venetian Village itself, they were paying to put riprap
Okay.
along their seawall.
Oh, so that
So I
has
think that's a
nothing to do
separate
with it, yeah.
project,
Oh,
and then the
Sorry.
boat club is something that is being handled by the city.
So the
It's
part
my
that we're
understanding.
concerned, yeah, that's out for bid though, it's, because
seawall
nothing's been
portion.
done for like
The
3 or
seawall
4 months.
portion.
so-
So, have they decided not to put mangroves, didn't they, the property owners of the,
Yeah, I
And-
didn't
and
hear
riprap.
anything about that.
okay. Okay, thank you. Our next item would be the financial report. We got a copy of the third quarter.
Yes, I mean, everything is on the sheet. We did have the sign itself for the $710. The piling was the $27.71. And then the marker installation was the $4,000. Those were the new expenses since the last time.
I notice our expenditures are way up from last year. $2,417 last year, $7,859 this year. And there's a couple items, maybe you can explain. What is the interior, is that decks and docks for $2,771?
Yeah, the interior decks and docks was the piling, the actual purchase of the piling to install the markers.
Oh, okay, that's the markers.
And then the one above it, the municipal supply and sign, that was for the marker sign itself.
Right, I got that one. Oh, so that, yeah, that confused me, decks and docks, so it's actually pilings.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And the waterfront property service, is that the treasure?
That was for them to actually install the marker
Oh,
with the
that's a labor.
pilings in and install the signs.
So the 2770 fund was materials only,
Correct.
and the $4,000 was the labor.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about, at the last meeting, we approved an additional $75,000 for water quality testing in addition to the 35 for the riprap. Obviously, that's for next year's budget. Do you have any type of numbers for next year's budget? Because I know on June 15th, it went before council to approve our millage rate to keep it the same. So I was just wondering if you had a fiscal.
I do not, but they are working on it like right now. So that's why I don't have it. They literally are working on it right now.
Okay. So it's going to go before council, I guess, budget workshops in August, and then approval in September. So do we get to see this before it goes? What's the process? Do we have any input or no?
Yeah.
I mean, the process is, as far as the scheduling, there could be discussion and direction to staff as the budget's being prepared. I don't know that you're having a meeting before then, so you could express your views, and staff can take that into consideration through that process.
So if we decide now to increase, I'm going back to the riprap, if we decide now to increase to 45 or 50, that should be done now, though, to be included in that budget, right? That would make more sense?
Yes, it
Rather than
would.
wait until October and then,
So when staff is working on the budget component of it, this comments could be made that the initial responses to the bids that were requested, or the quotes, exceeded the 35,000, and that there may be a contingency for additional costs.
So would it behoove us then to?
yeah, I think it would be prudent if we went ahead and made that recommendation, just to maybe add a contingency of maybe another 20,000 or whatever we decide, just so that it's there. And like Natalie said, if they get lower bids, and if you do look for additional bids in the meantime, perhaps it will be less, but at least it's there.
It's there, yeah, I agree.
Well, the only issue with that is sometimes if people know what's there,
Oh.
then the bids might come in to what's there, rather than in a competitive type process. That would be one drawback to it. I'm not sure of how the amendment process goes. If you stayed with the current level that you have, would it be possible to go at a future time to amend it, the budget? If the bids come
Yeah.
in at a higher amount, I think that's part of what staff can work with finance on.
So maybe at this point, then, we are better just to stay with it, see what comes in, and then the October meeting, maybe ask for an amendment for increase if we're finding that it's just not possible to do this work. Because I think we're on board that we wanted to see it done. I don't think that's the question at this point. I think we agreed, all of us, at the last meeting.
Yep. I mean, it's an option that you have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And with the increase of the 75,000 and the 35, possibly more, do you feel that our millage rate is sufficient to be able to cover these additional costs, or if there are any additional things that we want to add to it?
I think it's fine. You know, I don't remember seeing anything that would cause any kind of alarm with the numbers that we've been talking about, so.
And maybe with the increase in the property values, that gives a little extra.
Right.
I think it was like
Right.
12% or something. And I also wanted to ask, out of our, I guess, do we still have like 1.2 million in the reserve account
It should still be
for
there.
the fund? How much of that are we obligated to keep in as a backup? And, you know, are there limits? Are there, you know, do we want to keep $1 million in there for whatever reason? I know one of the things in the past that's been brought up is emergency dredging, but doesn't the county now cover the cost of emergency dredging of the past?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So does that give us more flexibility to use some more of these funds if we are concerned about the water quality and want to do more?
Honestly, I'm not familiar with your budget. I don't know if anyone from finance is available that could answer some of these detailed questions. I don't know that staff was anticipating them.
Right.
But could certainly circle back to you with answers after the meeting.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments about the financials? Yeah, I kind of would like to see some of that before the budget hearings. And we can do this by email, right? We don't need to have another meeting.
Correct, as long as it's a one-way communication of information from staff to the committee, and then no interaction between you all.
Okay, member comments? Any member comments?
I have no more comments.
No, ma'am.
Okay, the next meeting is scheduled for October 18th. You know,
Okay,
please make sure to put it on your calendars.
all right, thank you. So our next meeting is October 18th. This will be a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Great. All right. No other comments, questions? And meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to today's Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board meeting. If you wish to address the board regarding an item listed on the agenda, please complete a registration form at the rear of the room and place it in the speaker request box located on the dais prior to consideration of that item. We ask the speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes and that large groups name a spokesperson whenever possible. Thank you for your interest and participation in city government. So, roll call.
Member Asgard. Member Dominic.
Here.
Vice Chair Dondeville.
Here.
Member Fushone. Member Levy.
Here.
Member Palmer.
Here.
Chair Frederickson.
Here.
Thank you.
So we're going to set the agenda. I had one item that I was going to ask that we move item 7A. I would motion to move that item 7A to follow item 10A. So basically the last discussion of our meeting.
I'll second that motion. Or you're making a motion, so I can second it.
Sure.
I second that motion.
Should I just do an all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. So public comment. Do we have any public comment not specific to any items on this agenda? Doesn't look like it. All right. Approval of minutes. So I'll entertain a motion, or if we have any comments on the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of the March 28th and the May 23rd meetings that have been submitted, and I think we've all had a chance to read them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, minutes pass. So that brings us to our first item, 5A.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and CRAB members. Anita Jenkins, CRA Administrator for the record.
This morning, we have a public hearing item before you. And the title of the public hearing is a resolution determining on-street parking in D Downtown, Petition 22, PDWN1, for the allocation of 3 on-street parking spaces south of Central Avenue in the D Downtown zoning district for the property located at 1200 Central Avenue. And with us today, we have a petitioner that will make a presentation to you, and then we have our expert witness, Leslie Dolmer, on behalf of staff that will go through the petition for you. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so all of our experts will be sworn in, and then they will offer you evidence. When you consider that evidence, we will be asking you for a motion at the end of your consideration to either approve, make a recommendation to City Council to approve the on-street parking allocation, approve with conditions, or deny the application. If you make a motion or recommendation to deny that, then you need to have justification for that. So with that, I have laid out in your AGM the process that we will go through this morning. And before we begin with that process, do you all have any questions? This may be your first opportunity to hear an item like this. It is required by the code for this allocation to come to CRAB, and then it'll go to City Council with your recommendation. And before we ask the petitioner to begin with their presentation, I just want to make sure that you all understand the process that we'll be going through.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Has this gone in front of, let's say, the Planning Advisory Board or the Design Review Board?
The specific parking allocation by the code comes to CRAB because it is in the redevelopment area. The code was written for this recommendation to become to you and then to City Council. So it is, it's a different step in the process. Generally, quasi-judicial items do go before the PAB, the Planning Advisory Board, but the code requires this one because it is on-street parking allocation to come before the CRAB. So that's just the nuance of the code of how it's written. So it does not go before the PAB. It comes to you for your recommendation to City Council.
Have there been other buildings that have made such a request within the CRA that would have come to us?
So this isn't specifically a building application, it's a parking allocation application. But I understand, and I'll let Leslie expand on this, but I understand there have been some parking allocations that have come before the CRAB back in 2018, 2019 timeframe.
Okay,
So
that answers my question then. Thank you.
I will just add from a procedural perspective, Anita did a great job in laying out what the process is in the memorandum that you got, and it follows the procedures that are in your procedural rules, which are typically followed by others. Your involvement after witnesses are sworn in is really the ex parte disclosures, and I know some of you have been involved in other quasi-judicial matters, so you're familiar with it, but I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
And let me add to that on your ex parte. What that means is if you've been to the site and you've had a site visit, you need to let us know that. If you have spoke with the applicant or any other party, if you've received emails, phone calls, you need to disclose that. So that's what we mean by ex parte disclosure. Do you have any more questions on ex parte? Because that might be new to you as well. Okay. All right.
So just to kind of follow up on that, usually Design Review Board, we do this with everything. So the petitioner will come and present to us, and we'll allow the petitioner, please don't interrupt the petitioner, let them present everything that they're going to present to us. And then we'll call on staff, who's Leslie this morning, for her report to us, and then we'll have a discussion. So we'll each have our comments to that for the petitioner. You can ask him questions at that time. And then once we have those discussions, then we'll have a motion or we won't. So, thank you.
So the first thing that we'll do now, if you have no other questions, we'll swear in our witnesses, and Allie does that for us.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
And now is the time, Mr. Chair, that you would ask for ex parte disclosures.
So disclosures, so I'll, go ahead, Julia. Yeah, we'll just go down
You
the
looked
line.
at me, so I was going to go first. I've had no contact with the petitioner, although I do live around the corner, so I pass the site all the time.
I have not had any disclosures with the petitioner or have had a site visit.
I am familiar with the site and have reviewed the petitioner's application. I believe Mr. Shukart and myself have had a few phone calls on other projects, not this one, and a brief conversation on this one about a month ago. Just him letting us know that he's probably going to need to bring this before CRAB.
I visited the site and reviewed the application package.
I reviewed the application package. I know Mr. Shukart. I've walked around the property there. I think he and I met there once, but it had nothing to do with this particular application. And as far as Mr. Pasadomo goes, I've had no contact with him on this matter, but anytime he talks, I like to listen. So.
So with that, I'll ask Leslie to introduce the petition to you, and then the petitioner will provide their presentation.
I don't have much of an introduction. Anita already mentioned it. I'll state Leslie Dolmer with the City of Naples Planning Department. My resume and qualifications are on file with this petition, and I've been certified as an expert in planning and zoning matters before the Design Review Board, the Planning Advisory Board, and City Council. I'm not sure, Nancy, if it's necessary for them to accept me as an expert in this matter or not.
It would be preferable, just so we have it on record. Again, I don't know that you've appeared before them in your role as an expert.
It's been quite some time. And
Okay, so if you all are convinced that she is qualified to provide testimony to you today regarding these matters concerning her expertise of the City of Naples Code of Ordinances related to land use matters, as well as Florida statutes, and her planning background and experience, then a motion would be appropriate to accept her as a witness, as an expert witness.
I can also provide a little brief background if that would be acceptable to this board, since you're not familiar with my background, before you make that motion. I have an undergraduate degree in urban planning and development and a master's degree in landscape architecture. I have worked